So the moment I took over the abortion facility, my eyes started getting open because I realized what I have been telling women, what I have been telling women was not true. I started seeing the irregularities. I started seeing the falsifying of patient charts, the daily perforations.
Hi there, and welcome to Caring for Both, a curbside consult series by the American Association of Pro-Life Obstetricians and Gynecologists, or APLOG. On this podcast, we bring on experts who can provide insights to you as a current or aspiring medical professional on how you can lead a life-affirming practice and a life-affirming career. My name is Miriam. I'll be your host for today. I'm APLOG's communications manager, and I'm really excited and really honored to introduce today's guest, who will, in fact, have a lot of useful insights to you, specifically taking a look inside of the abortion industry. So whether you're a current medical professional and you have colleagues or friends working in the abortion industry, or whether you're a medical student or resident who might be expected to do a rotation at an abortion clinic, you'll probably find this conversation useful. So my guest today is Mayra Rodriguez, who is a pro-life speaker and advocate and a whistleblower against the abortion giant Planned Parenthood, where she did work for 17 years. She rose through the ranks and was able to get to the position of managing 3 of their clinics in Arizona, and she even won the organization's 2016 Employee of the Year award. Now, that was all before she became pro-life, and during that time, unfortunately, she did witness a lot of significant health and safety violations, which she will be talking to us about today. And in her attempts to report those violations, she was unfortunately met with harassment and hostility and eventually termination. But as a whistleblower, Myra was able to win a wrongful termination lawsuit against Planned Parenthood, her former employer, and was awarded $3 million in damages. So Myra, thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you so much for having me today. It's a truly honor to be able to speak to the medical side of the pro-life community. Usually you don't get that, right? Usually just activists and just people advocating, working on pregnancy resource centers. But to know that there's a bunch of medical professionals defending life, defending what really, really being a doctor means, it's amazing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's why I'm excited to interview you as well, just because I'm aware that your insights and your experience will probably have a lot to say to our audience. So I'm excited to first have you share your personal story and then maybe even offer some advice to our audience. So yeah, first let's start with some context. How did you even end up working at Planned Parenthood?
I know, right? That's like the $1 million question that most people have for anyone who's in the abortion
Mm,
industry. And then you probably have heard this answer from many people too. I care for
mm,
women, right? I was told this was a place where women get help. I was told this was a place for women, right? Coming from Mexico, I grew up in Mexico City. I migrated to the United States when I was about 18 years of age. I had a medical lab technician diploma from Mexico. My passion was the healthcare. I grew up in a hospital setting. My mom was a social worker, so I was very devoted to the healthcare field. I wanted to be a doctor in my home country. Obviously, that's kind of hard when you're an immigrant, you're in this country, and it's not that easy going to medical school in the United States, right?
right.
So, I had a friend working for Planned Parenthood, and she knew my devotion and my interest of being in the healthcare field. Planned Parenthood was hiring bilingual people, bilingual staff members, because they wanted to expand into the Latino community. And I was like, wow, they care for my people too, right? So not only do they care and serve women, but they want to get to the Hispanic community and take care of them too, right? And they're willing to give me a job. I took a job, and just like many people that work for Planned Parenthood, I started as a medical assistant, as a healthcare assistant, like they call them. Then I became the assistant manager. I was devoted and dedicated to this mission and vision of Planned Parenthood. Little by little, I'm going to say they grew me, right? It started all with, oh, okay, we need to expand to the Hispanic community, and then you need to liberate the women of the Hispanic community, right? And we that are on this side would understand what liberating means and why they put that word on us. Like if these women are being held hostage by their husbands and family, and we need to go free them, right? So I remember going into the communities and telling women, you don't have to, you can hide the birth control from your husband. You don't even have to tell them. It's your right. It's your body and your choice, right? I remember telling them how they could hide their abortions too from their husband. They don't have to have that other child and just be a slave to their family. Like little by little, I started grooming my community too, and these women. And the more groom I got by this mentality of women need the liberation, women need to be in charge of their own bodies, right? And I was so proud of the job I was doing at the preventive care side, right? I was like, I used to argue with people on the sidewalk and be like, I prevent more abortions than you do. I give them the pill. I give them birth control, right? It was my mentality that I was doing a better job than the people on the sidewalk, right? Because I was helping do something for the community. I became the Title 10 Center manager. Before that, I was a training coordinator, which means that I got trained to do ultrasounds and I trained other staff members to do ultrasound. Now, remember, my only medical background was a medical lab technician diploma from
Mm.
Mexico. I had gone to community college here, but it was mostly administrative studies, right? So I started going to be the training coordinator. Then I became the Title 10 Center manager. Then they gave me the direction of another Title 10 center, which was Flagstaff, Arizona. Now I'm in charge of two centers. Now we're talking about 2014, 2015, right? And I continue to do this job, this dedication, right? I was even along with Cecile Richards in Congress advocating for Trump not to defund Planned Parenthood in 2017. So in 2016, I get the Employee of the Year award, and with that came an offer that I'm gonna be honest, I was not expecting. They were like, Myra, we want you to be the director of the biggest abortion facility in Arizona. And I was like, no, thank you. Contrary to what people think, if they think that we look forward to being the director of the abortion facility, I don't think so.
Mm.
No one grows up saying, I want to be an abortion director. I want to be an abortion provider, right? No one says that. So when they offered me the job, I was like, no, I think I'm gonna pass. I'm good, right? And they're like, well, Trump will probably defund us, and we will have to close Title 10 centers, which means my centers, right? I'm directing two Title 10 centers, and we cannot guarantee that you will have a job. And I was like, all right then, right? On top of it, it's like you feel your devotion to them, you feel like you own to them, you know what I mean? Because they do so much for women that how could I say no, right? After they had me 16 years working there with my benefits, employee benefits, a somewhat good salary, medical insurance, right? Like I was caring for my family. And finally, well, I was like, okay, then I guess I have to take it, right? It's like, I don't think it's optional. So I took the job. Now, when I said to people this is the best thing that happened to me, they look at me like you're crazy. But hear me out. Here I am on the other side, promoting abortion, telling women this is a good thing for them, right? Selling them the idea that abortion is safe, selling them the idea that it is easier to have an abortion than carrying a baby to full term, right? How many times we have heard that? So I was selling that idea, right? So the moment I took over the abortion facility, my eyes started getting open because I realized what I have been telling women, what I have been selling women was not true. I started seeing the irregularities. I started seeing the falsifying of patient charts, the daily perforations. Remember, the abortion industry says like 28% may get perforated. But I saw perforations done daily, and that's just the ones we notice. Because I mean, I know you have interviewed many OBGYNs and you have worked with them, and you know that it's very hard for them to know when they have perforated someone. It's very hard, right? So sometimes the only way we find out is when these women are not getting healed, they go to the emergency room, they do a more deep ultrasound, and they find out that there's a perforation, right? Or sometimes OBGYNs in the future see these women with a lot of scarring of their uterus wall, and then we know that that's from the perforations done by an abortion, right? So it was all those things, right? And then the treatment to the unborn. Don't get me wrong, when you're in this field, you know where those babies go, right? They tell you they put in on Ziplocs. They tell you they're gonna go in a biohazard right back, and it will be discarded, disposed, along with medical waste and cremated.
Mm.
Right? We know that. It's very different being there, being witnessing of the puzzle of the baby part, having yourself to sign off for the person who picks up the baby
Mm.
part. That's a different story, right? Now you feel like it's like before I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I support it. Many people, right? Like I support it, but I have nothing to do with it,
Right.
right? Because I'm on this side. I'm just saying I'm for abortion. I tell women to go for their abortion, but I'm kind of like not doing abortions, right? But in reality is you have been part of this system and this industry by just promoting it, right? And once you realize what you have been promoted, it's like it's this blindfold that comes off your eyes. That's why it's the best thing that happened to me, right? It scares me to know where would I be if I would have never taken that job? Where would I be? Would I still be blindsided by them? Probably, right? Probably. Because some of us need to see to believe, right? Some of us. A lot of people like you probably have been pro-life their whole life, right? And know what they're doing, but some of us need to be able to see the truth in order to understand what we're doing. So I call out on the abortionists. Of course, my employer didn't like it. You know what I was thinking? I was so naive that I was like, so they're gonna give me another Employee of the Year award, right? Because I mean, I'm calling out these
Mm.
atrocities on the abortionist, right? Like my employer, who cares no matter what, will grant me like, Myra, thank you so much for bringing to our attention that we have bad abortionists. That's what I was expecting when I spoke out against the abortionist. But that did not happen. What happened was, Myra, while you were gone last week from your office, we found narcotics on your desk. You're fired. And I was like, but I wasn't even here. Like someone else was sitting in my desk. But it's your office and you have it on lock. And but I didn't put the narcotics there. Up until this day, I don't even know if there was narcotics or not on my desk. Right? So they fired me. And I was like, I knew what the reason they fired me was because they wanted to accuse me of something so serious that will damage literally my image, right? And as must probably you know, if you're accused of stealing or having narcotics, like that literally closes your door to a lot of
Right.
jobs, right? And I was like, what am I gonna do against them? What can I do? I mean, it's their word against mine. I'm just a Mexican, right? Against the multi-billion-dollar corporation, multinational big corporation that it's Planned Parenthood. What am I gonna do? So, with the help of some of the people on the sidewalk, some pro-life people, I got my lawyer, Tim Casey. You know, you can just imagine the scene at his office, right? When I tell him this Mexican novela, this Mexican soap opera, and then he's like, "I believe you." I was like, I was kind of shocked, right? Because you believe me, and I'm gonna defend you. And we started a wrongful termination lawsuit against Planned Parenthood, being the only wrongful termination lawsuit from an employee to them, making it to trial and winning.
Right.
Also from a non-American person too, right?
Right.
So those are a couple things that I have as my plus side, right? People were like, it's gonna be so hard, it's impossible to beat Planned Parenthood in court, but the truth prevails. And we won that lawsuit in against all odds, right? And I decided that it was just not like, oh, I won, let me just go home and sit on my couch, right? Now that I beat Planned Parenthood. No, I realized that the abortion industry goes beyond Arizona, goes beyond
Right.
the United States, right? This is a global issue, and Planned Parenthood, known as IPPF internationally, that goes under many different names. In Argentina, it's called FUSA. In Colombia, it's called Pro Familia. That means pro family. Can you
Right.
imagine that?
Pretty ironic.
I mean, if we thought Planned Parenthood was already deceiving, can you imagine being called Pro Familia,
Right.
right? So I understood that just like my story needed to travel across the borders, across the seas, and make people aware of what we have seen. I extremely believe that the stronger witnesses for this movement are the people that have been on the other side, right? Like the women that had had abortions, like people that have worked for the abortion industry. That's my story. That's why I didn't. Some people have asked me, well, you won. Why didn't you just go and stay home? It's like you can't. Once you're in this, you just cannot just go and stay
Right.
home. You have to do something about
Right.
it.
And we're super grateful that you did do something about it because now, with you sharing your story, you're able to provide a perspective to those of us on the outside who, now don't really have to go through what you went through in order to realize the truth about what happens in that industry. Yeah, and because a lot of your story probably resonates with a lot of people out there who do believe that Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry overall holistically helps women. That's, as you said, that's how they market themselves. We provide birth control so women can take control over their lives, and maybe even as a preventative measure so they don't have to get abortions. And you saw how well that narrative holds up in real life, and now you can tell us about that. And so I'm super grateful about that. So let's backtrack a little bit to some of the concerning practices that you saw. You mentioned some perforations, and of course, you mentioned having to witness firsthand, the quote unquote products of conception aspect of it, and seeing the bodies of the preborn children that were killed in abortions. What other specific instances, maybe that were notable to you, did you witness while working at Planned Parenthood?
The falsifying a patient chart, it's something
Right.
that also made me very worried. When I say falsifying, means like when the abortionist will put aspiration done without complications, and clearly something happened,
Mm,
right? Like clearly there was complications, right? Whether the patient was bleeding, whether the patient had had a perforation, whether something went wrong, you cannot just mark without complications,
mm,
right? I started noticing that if there was a complication, so for many years I took over the Title 10 centers, the preventive care side, right? I was in charge of reporting complications. Like if a patient had had an IUD and for some reason the IUD insertion went wrong, I will do the report. I will
mm,
get to report that not only to PPFA, Planned Parenthood Federation of America, but to the medical board, whatever necessary, health department, whatever you had to make those reports, I will take care of it myself.
right.
That was not the point at the abortion facility. I was no longer in charge of that. Now, the medical director, who happens to be the same abortionist I accuse of, was in charge of making those reports. I never got to see if they got reported or not. Remember, our statistics come from this report. We are here at the mercy of this abortionist reporting what goes wrong in the room for those statistics. So can you imagine that? Can you imagine that in the trucking industry, we were waiting for truckers to report their accidents for us to be able to have a statistic report of how many accidents are caused by truck drivers. Can
Right.
you
It's
imagine
definitely
that?
an adverse
No. A
incentive.
different department takes care. Exactly. A different department takes care of this. The police department, like transportation department, someone else reports the accidents from a truck driver, right? Like you don't get away with it. Like it will be. I'm giving that example because I currently, my husband and I own a trucking company, so I'm very familiar with the trucking industry too. And I can see how hard it is on the trucking industry and how easy I had it on the abortion industry, right? Another thing, the healthcare inspections. I remember on my Title 10 centers, the non abortion facilities, the inspector will show up unannounced, like it should, right? Like it does to a restaurant, like it does to
Mm,
a nail salon, right? Like it's not doing surgeries, but they're so hard on nail salon. For example, on the trucks, our trucks could be stopped today for a quick inspection, surprise inspection on the road, and if something is wrong with the truck, that truck will be taken out of service, right? And that's what you were expecting. The abortion industry, in some states, it's not even expected. But in the state of Arizona, the same health department lady that used to go to the non abortion facilities will call and schedule
mm,
the inspection done to the abortion facilities. They're going to come between this time and this time. Like Not give me an exact time and frame, right? But give me an idea when she was coming by, right? So what is that? That gives you the opportunity to clean up, to get things ready, to get the charts that she needs to be ready, right? I'm not going to hand over 20 charts that have
Right.
issues, right? It's not that she randomly will go and pick them up, especially now that they're electronic records. It's not that they randomly pick up the numbers, that you hand over the patients that you want them to
Mm.
see, right? I saw that. I saw that if a patient came from the abortion pill and her blood pressure was a bit high, the abortionist will redo the blood pressure herself. All of a sudden, her blood pressure was normal, and she will be, oh, I think she was just nervous.
Mm.
Her iron level all of a sudden went up, right? To match what the guidelines said for the abortion pill. The baby part. In the state of Arizona, the abortionist and his team had to sign an affidavit stating every single baby part has been accounted for, but constantly baby parts were left
Mm.
inside. Actually, on my lawsuit, there's a big case about a 14-week baby that the head was left inside the mother and it was found above an IUD that had been already
Mm.
inserted. That girl in less than 30 minutes had literally 2 aspirations. They scraped her twice and they insert an IUD twice on her without telling her, because on top of it, sorry about that, on top of it, he marked no complications on the chart and was refusing to even enter that he had inserted another IUD on the patient, which now was affecting my inventory too, right? And that was the last case I talked to him about. So I witnessed all those things. I witnessed minors being impregnated by adults go
Mm.
unreported, no police report about it. And I think one of the hardest things was that here I am telling my supervisors what I'm finding, right? Like, this is what's going on. Like, he's doing this. And all I keep hearing was, oh, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. You just keep doing your job.
Mm.
Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. We just keep doing your job. During my lawsuit on the trial, my supervisor says, we never told her no, we never told her to stay quiet and hide it. And my lawyer had to explain to them, well, of course not. But what you told her was, don't worry about it. Just keep doing your job, which means overlook at it, right? Like, you let her believe that you will take care of it while she just continues to do her job.
Mm.
But in reality, they never planned to do anything about it.
Right.
Once they realized I was not going to stay quiet, I think they had to take care of me.
Right, right. Because yeah, if you consider your job to be helping women, then it's pretty shocking that they'd ask you and expect you to just stay quiet with things like this. So yeah, that's a really helpful explanation of some of the systemic issues that are prevalent in at Planned Parenthood specifically. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was an issue at other clinics as well, or at other organizations as well. So with all that being said, I'm sure you have a lot of wisdom that you could potentially impart to our audience. So I'm wondering, what advice might you have for pro-life medical professionals who have colleagues or friends or former classmates who currently work in the abortion industry? What are some things you think they could say to them?
I know that they realize that they think they're helping women. When you're in the abortion industry, you don't get to see these women. Like, all the women I sent for abortions, I never got to see them again. It's not like they're gonna go back to Myra that refer me to the abortion, right? All these women that we serve abortions, even if they have a recurring abortion, they don't go back to the same facility most of the time, right? They go to another location. You don't get to see the women after it. So we hardly get to see the damage. Today I have met hundreds of women that had had abortions. Not only they had been damaged emotionally, some of them had been damaged physically. Some of them 10 years from their abortion tried to have a baby and they're no longer able to, right? Because one thing that the abortion industry cannot tell us is how many abortions can a woman have before she becomes sterile. They don't know that, because it could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 10. They don't know that, right? The point is that abortion, they know that. If they're in an abortion facility, I know they have witnessed things. And I know they think that staying quiet helps the movement, right? That's what they told me, right? A lot of the people, a lot of my peers that work with me and were still my friends throughout the lawsuit, once I became a public activist for the pro-life movement, stopped talking to me because they said one thing was to take a lawsuit against them and win and make a point, and another thing is affecting the pro-abortion movement. And I said, right, but the problem is that pro-abortion movement is the abortion industry, which it is the same that I accuse Planned Parenthood of. We're not just talking about Planned Parenthood. We're talking about the small abortionist on his private practice that it's even worse than Planned Parenthood, right? And Gosnell is a good example of that,
Right.
right? That we're talking about these facilities. Our country still gives the right to conscience, right? We still have not removed that from medical professionals. Like here, I think in many states still, a doctor can refuse to perform an abortion. Many countries don't have that, right? Colombia forces their doctors to do abortions. Some parts of Mexico force their doctors to do abortion. Argentina forces their doctors to do abortions. I mean, they have been in prison and lost their license from refusing to perform an abortion when they think they could save both the woman and the baby. So that is something that we should be grateful for. The fact that doctors here can still refuse, and we have a whole pro-life movement behind them ready to defend them, right? You don't have to work for that industry. You don't. There's many other ways to help women. And I am truly convinced that one day the medical professionals will realize that they're not helping women. I think that the abortion industry has done a pretty good job forcing them. I remember medical students coming to do their rotations at Planned Parenthood that literally shared with me they have been forced to do this. Like they didn't want to, but in order to graduate, they had to. They had to do that rotation there. To me, that was devastating, right? I remember seeing one of the students, he was foreigner. I believe that he was from some part of Asia that literally said, I don't care, I'm not doing this. And he walked out of the clinic. And the abortion was like, well, we'll see if he can get a medical license in this country. That was so sad,
Mm.
right? Like he knew that this was wrong and holding them hostage in order for them to graduate or get a medical license. It's wrong, right? So that's my advice to some of those medical professionals and people that work in the industry.
Right, and we would absolutely echo that. Just the part about staying true to your beliefs if you're not comfortable doing or participating in abortions. There are federal laws protecting your conscience rights, and obviously you can reach out to us at Applog. We do a lot of supporting medical students and medical residents through the admittedly coercive environment that is created in the medical school and residency kind of system, where they try their hardest to try and get you to do abortions, even though, from the perspective of federal law, you really don't have to. One other question in terms of advice, I'm wondering what you could say to medical professionals who have witnessed or suspect malpractice or health violations from an abortion clinic. You mentioned that often when women have perforations, they're just let go and end up in the emergency room to be taken care of by another physician. If for our members who might be those physicians, what would you say to them?
I mean, as a whistleblower, I'm always encouraging people to blow that whistle, right? That's another great thing about our country. The protection for whistleblowers, it's really high, right? I mean, the only reason I won that lawsuit was due to that protection for whistleblowers, right? It was a wrongful termination lawsuit under the Whistleblower Protection Act. I think that if you see something, say something. We tell our children that. It's like I raise my children always telling them that, right? Like if you're in school and someone's bullying someone, say something. Don't stay quiet. So when it happened to me, it was time for me to show that I was a woman of my word, right? That if I told my children to do that, I was going to do that myself, right? Adults tend to stay quiet in their place of work. I have seen it in many places. Like you won't believe it, but once I won the lawsuit and it made news, I like I bumped into colleagues of mine that told me they had witnessed worse things than I had. I was like, why did you not do anything about it? Like, what's going on here, right? It's like sometimes they're too afraid, especially in the abortion industry, Planned Parenthood, especially. It's very quick to kind of twist your arm and tell you if you do wrong to Planned Parenthood, no one else will hire you, right?
Mm.
No one else. Especially people have this impression that whistleblowers don't get hired, right? Like once you are known as a whistleblower, no one else is going to hire you because then now you're known as the rat, right? Like they will
Mm.
use that term, right? But I strongly believe that if we have raised our children to see something, say something, this comes also when it comes to our work too, our work ethics, right? If someone is doing wrong, I know a lot of people working in hospitals have seen wrongdoings. I know a lot of people working in the medical field constantly see something wrong happening. And they're, who are you protecting? That's my question.
Right.
You have sworn to protect that patient of yours. You have sworn to protect the patient you're taking care of. When you stay quiet, who are you actually protecting? Your boss? The hospital? The abortion industry? Why are you protecting them? If what you are here to do is protect those women, then you should not be protecting the abortionist.
Right. That's a really good point. We have to stay laser focused on who it is that we're trying to help. And pro life medical professionals, they believe they have two patients when they're treating a pregnant woman. They have the woman and her child, and everything that they do should be geared towards protecting those two patients. Yeah. So, one last question, where can people go to keep up with you or any other resources that you'd recommend to them?
Great. Well, you can find me on social media as Mayra Rodriguez. Also, if you just Google Planned Parenthood whistleblower, my name comes up, right? And then I do work with And Then They Were None, which is an abortion former worker ministry, which helps abortion workers in the United States leave the industry and find a better life, also find healing. We're trying to get this ministry across the globe, starting with the Finding Healing in other countries. Like the abortion workers know where they can go so they can talk to someone and try to find a different use of their skills, right? Which is the right word. So they can find that at abortionworker.com. If you are in the abortion industry and you would like to leave the abortion industry, please reach out to us. We can promise you that here, at least in the United States, we have a strong pro life movement. And if you need a job, we will find your job. That has nothing to do with killing babies.
That's really good to know. Thank you so much, Myra. And I'll be sure to put that link to and then there were none abortionworker.com in the show notes. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your insights today.
Thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure meeting you in person last week in DC. We were freezing all together, but I think it was very joyful, a very strong movement. We proved the world that nothing will stop us in this fight. We will love them all. And thank you so much for all you do. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And yeah, for context for our listeners, we did meet at the March for Life earlier this year. So that was it was an absolute pleasure to meet you and the rest of the And Then There Were None crew. So yeah, thank you so much to our listeners as well for joining. If you like this episode, be sure to hit like, subscribe, give us a 5-star review on whatever app you're using to listen to this podcast. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you at our next episode.